As usual, the emergency room of a regular city hospital was crowded. The queue was huge, and there were all sorts of people moaning and clamoring. An expensively dressed gentleman paced nervously back and forth, glancing at his watch every now and then. He obviously wanted to get out of here as quickly as possible. In the corner, on a bed, sat his sick wife. The poor woman could barely stand on her feet, her face gray and haggard, circles under her eyes, swelling. She tried to get through to her husband. "Shawn, I don't want to go here. Do you have any idea what a 6-person ward is like? They could be all kinds of trash. And anyway, you see, I was diagnosed with hypertension for 6 months. Pills. And what? Now I've had a fever for a month, my back is falling off, what's wrong with me? How can they tell here? Do you want me to die? Can't we afford a private clinic? There's better care and professionals. I'll feel safer." The woman almost cried from the pain in her back and despair, but her husband was adamant. "Sally, but don't panic. You should have refused to go to the ambulance the day before yesterday. It would have been put faster, without waiting in line. I'm sure they'll treat you here too. Just so you know, the same doctors at private clinics. So why overpay? Only a day's stay there will probably cost 1,000 rubles. And you don't know how long you'll have to stay. Where am I going to get that kind of money? Anyway, I have a meeting in half an hour. It's time to run. You've got your things, documents, and statements too. So you're on your own from here on out. I'll come check on you tomorrow. Cheer up." "Okay, bye," Sally cried. She was so hurt. Now more than ever she needed support, a warm word, participation, and it was as if her husband didn't care. It all started 6 months ago. Out of the blue, her blood pressure began to rise, her nose began to bleed. She was prescribed medications. She drank them faithfully. But there was no improvement. Not only that, she became very tired, sweating. She had no strength. Furthermore, in the area of the lower back began to break. She drank painkillers. It saved, but not for long, and then began to swell. All this was so frightening and painful for the young woman. And the day before yesterday, I even had to call an ambulance. They wanted to take her away at once, but for some reason she got cold feet and refused. But the medics warned her that she should urgently take a referral from the attending doctor and be examined in the hospital. And now she finally decided to take this step. Now it was already clear that it was not just hypertension, but something bad and serious. Fearful thoughts did not let her sleep. Sally wanted to go to a private clinic. She knew how much attention they paid to each patient. But her husband decided that she could get help here. Her mother-in-law considered her dysfunctional, saying she was always sick and couldn't give birth to a child. That was another of Sally's problems. She never got pregnant, even though she had been living with her husband for many years. It all seemed that that happy life was forever in the past, and ahead only torment and hospital walls. The queue moved unbearably slowly. Every now and then there was a blatant pass without a queue, or someone was brought in by ambulance. Sally closed her eyes and began to remember her life, how happy they had been with Shawn before. It made her feel a little better. Sally was the owner of a small cross-country trucking company. It was a family business that she had inherited after her parents died. At first it was not easy for her to understand all the intricacies, to study logistics, to understand what cargoes will bring real profit, and with what firms it is better not to get in touch. But gradually she got into the rut, and the business successfully turned. They had 10 vans, a garage, dispatch, and accounting. And Sally was in charge of the whole thing. The woman was spinning like a squirrel in a wheel, kept everything under control, carefully selected staff. After all, on the experience and skills of the driver directly depended on the success of transportation. Sally still had her parents' 2-bedroom in a good neighborhood, so she was an enviable bride. Many men paid attention to her, but her heart remained silent. Her late parents had lived together for over 30 years and had loved each other to their last breath, and she wanted the same. She was sure that without love there was nothing to start a relationship. Then one day Shawn came to her to apply for a job. As soon as she saw this nice bearded man, so virile, with a strong-willed chin, she fell in love for some reason immediately. Her heart jumped and began to beat faster, and her breath was immediately taken away. The man was not stupid, immediately noticed the prominent girl and began to actively pursue her. He knew how to be assertive. complimented Sally all the time, gave her delicate violets and brought her favorite double espresso right from the morning in bed. It was so nice. The affair spiraled quickly and Sally realized she was missing out, although the staff wondered what she saw in that brash chauffeur. It was with her light hand that Shawn soon became a dispatcher, then a logistician, and then her right-hand man. It seemed right and logical to her, to help her lover to make a career. But the more Shawn immersed himself in his work, the more he changed, and alas, not for the better. The spouse now looked down on everyone, commanded the staff. He was no longer afraid to offend her, could sharply respond, although then and then apologized. And then his mother fell on their heads. She came from the village, not God knows where, but still there. She ran the apartment and liked to teach her daughter-in-law about life. True, in the eyes she was more cunning, was the very courtesy. But the woman felt her dislike. One day Sally came home very late and heard her mother taunting her son. "Do you even think of having a child or what? You're the last man standing and you still haven't got an heir. She's so weak you've got nothing but trouble with her." Sally coughed and came into the kitchen and answered sharply, "Yes, we have no children, but we'll figure it out on our own, okay? Shawn and I want to adopt a boy from the orphanage. His name is Max. I visit him a lot. He's such a sweet, kind boy. He's just lame from birth. But that can be fixed. So there will be an heir soon, don't worry." The woman pressed her lips and began to dissuade her daughter-in-law. "Sally, what are you thinking of? It's someone else's blood. He'll never be your kin. What kind of heir is it? Maybe you should wait a little longer. Maybe you'll give birth yourself. He's a cripple, and then you'll have to take care of him. Better get a dog then. It's less trouble." Sally replied unhappily, "Can we stop talking about this? We've made up our minds. We're getting our papers together. It's our life and we don't need to interfere with it. I'm sure that I will be a real mom for my son and will be able to bring up a decent man. Shawn's got my back. Right, honey?" The husband nodded without much enthusiasm. He didn't contradict his wife, but in his heart he wasn't thrilled with the idea of raising someone else's child, and a troubled one at that. Sally, on the other hand, had taken a fondness for this skinny, frail little baby who had been abandoned by his mother at childbirth because of a twisted foot. He was an outcast in the orphanage, unable to run like the others, teased and laughed at for being lame. When Sally came up to him and asked him questions, he sadly replied, "You won't take me anyway. I'm defective, lame. Nobody takes me. And they don't like me." This struck Sally so much, she felt so sorry for this poor little fellow, and she answered him confidently, "I'm not like the others. I'll take you, and I'll love you. Will you come and live with me? I would dream of having such a son." Max looked at her maturely and asked, "Are you sure? You won't cheat? I'll be waiting." Sally hugged him and answered, "Honestly honest, I won't cheat. I'll come for you, you'll see." Sally began to gather the necessary documents for the adoption, but her illness had taken its toll, and now the process was postponed until she recovered. And this also depressed the woman a lot, because Max had believed her and waited for her, and now he would think that she had deceived and abandoned him, that she would not take him out of the orphanage. Finally, she was called into the admissions box and began to be processed into the ward. She entered the ward and looked around. It was a dreary sight: shabby, half-open nightstands, a dripping faucet, humped beds, and worn linoleum on the floor. She sluggishly said hello to the other patients, there were 3 of them, and began to unpack her things, and then she was taken in for examination and tests. To her surprise, the attending doctor was a very attentive and pleasant woman, Louisa, who first of all, after hearing all her complaints, referred her for a kidney ultrasound. I also went with her. The doctor drove the probe for a long time and sighed, and then cautiously asked, "Say, has anyone in your family suffered from kidney disease? It's important." Sally tensed up and replied, "Yes. My grandmother suffered for a long time and then her kidneys failed." "Why?" "You don't mean to say that I did too?" Louise replied, "Yes, unfortunately it's true. You have severe inflammation, it's clearly visible on the ultrasound, and it's terminal. And your right kidney hasn't been doing its job for a long time, so you've delayed your visit to the doctor." You see, your constant increase in blood pressure and other symptoms are just caused by a failure in the work of organs. You were misdiagnosed at the clinic and you missed time. I'm sorry. In the early stages of the disease, you could have been treated with medication. That would have stopped it and improved your condition. Now it's too late. Sally was panicking and almost screaming. So what? Is that it? I'm finished? I'm going to die and there's no chance? Is that what you're saying? Thank you. Thank you. Louise answered quietly. Your only chance of survival is a kidney transplant. We perform such operations, but the main problem is to find a suitable donor. As a rule, it should be a relative. Less often, a stranger may be suitable, but this does not happen very often. The selection may take a lot of time, and you don't have it. That's the trouble. Sally cried quietly. I don't have any relatives. My parents are dead. I have no brothers and sisters. What am I supposed to do? It's a nightmare. I'm going to die either way. Is there no way out? Louise answered. Wait and pray. Miracles do happen. In the meantime, we'll hook you up to a hemodialysis system and clean your blood artificially 3 times a week. There are no other options. It's a very difficult procedure, and you'll need a lot of care. Sally wandered back to her room sobbing, the doctor's verdict killing her. She wept bitterly. Heartfelt women began to ask her what was wrong. Patients in the ward consoled her and praised the doctors here. You do not think that this is a sleeveless treatment. You shouldn't think so. Louisa, by the way, is a professor. She's pulled a lot of people from the dead. Do everything she tells you and believe in the best. Prokhorova will definitely help you. They don't treat you for money. They treat you for your conscience. Sally took a bunch of more tests, and she rushed to call her husband. He really scared her hysterics and rushed right away. But he didn't go to her, but to the doctor. He wanted to know firsthand what had happened. The doctor did not hide anything, said that the situation is critical, difficult, and whether his wife will live to the moment when a donor is found or not, it is unknown. The clever man immediately imagined that he was already running the company himself, and mentally said goodbye to the sick and shabby wife, so he was not very upset. On the contrary, he came up with a cunning plan. He called a lawyer the same day and made a will on behalf of his wife, where all the property in the company will go to him in the event of her death. And he began to work her over. Sally, I'm so worried. I sympathize with you. You're suffering so much. But I believe you'll get a donor. The doctors will help you. But still, just in case, sign this, so that our company does not go bankrupt, and I manage everything by law. You don't mind, do you? You know how hard I'm working for the common cause, cooperating with factories, transporting equipment. And I need a place to live in case something happens. The apartment is yours. The woman was in such a prostration she completely became thin. She faded and resigned that she would soon die, so she signed everything. What does it matter what will happen after her death? Shawn is her heir, but if he wants so much, then let him. She wanted her husband to stay with her longer, to take pity on her, but he was in a hurry to go somewhere else, promised to find a nurse and rushed away on business. Shawn sat behind the wheel and almost shouted with joy. How lucky he was. He dialed the number of his mistress and almost shouted into the receiver, Mary, today's the day. We should celebrate. That stupid chicken signed everything like I planned. I talked to the doctor. Her days are numbered. I'm finally going to get rid of her. Oh my God, everything worked out so well. So come see me tonight. We're going to have a blast. Shawn had never really liked Sally. He'd just miscalculated. Before he met her, he'd worked part-time jobs here and there, had no place of his own, nothing. But when he made inquiries about his landlady, he immediately perked up his ears and realized that this was his ticket to a new, happy life. So what do you think? A little overweight, not very beautiful, these ridiculous glasses, and a couple of years will have to lose. But now he is almost a director, lives in a comfortable 2-bedroom. His wife bought him a car. Not just any car, but a foreign car from the showroom. It remains to get rid of the shabby wife and all. Live and enjoy. He was not going to take care of Sally in the hospital or hire a professional nurse. On the contrary, it was necessary to find such an option to quickly finish his wife. The opportunity came a couple days later. He was just pulling into the company's territory when he noticed some vagrant hanging around the truck and looking under it. Shawn stopped, immediately ran up to him and grabbed him by the elbow, twisting his arm painfully. Who the hell are you? What are you doing hanging out on private property? What was the guard looking at? You're trying to siphon gasoline or steal something? I'm calling the police right now. The tramp was very frightened and begged, I beg you, don't call the police. I already have a suspended sentence. They won't look into it. They'll give me another one. I didn't steal anything, I swear. I thought I'd ask you if you had a job. I could wash cars or unload merchandise. I've been starving for 3 days. I'll take any job. Shawn smiled enigmatically and rubbed his hands together and said, I have a job for you, but specific. I need to take care of my sick wife in the hospital. Bring groceries, help with everything. Either you take it or I'll call you right now. The tramp had no way out, and he agreed, deciding for himself that nothing would be worse than wandering the streets. Shawn gave him some money for a bath and clean clothes, and told him to clean himself up a little, or else they'd kick him out of the hospital. And the next day the vagrant timidly knocked on the room, asked, Hello? Who's Sally? The surprised woman barely answered. I am. Who are you? We don't seem to know each other. The drifter replied, I'm Patrick. Your husband hired me to take care of you. Now I will always be near you. What you need to do. Don't hesitate. The woman was stunned. She did not expect such a thing. God, Shawn decided to kill me? Could not find a normal nurse, a woman? I can't get up almost. I need to be washed and in general. I can't ask you to do that. It's embarrassing. Are you a nurse or an orderly? To be honest, I don't think so. Patrick was embarrassed. How could he do such a task? But there was no way to retreat, and he answered cheerfully, Don't worry, and don't mind that I'm a man. Everything will be fine. I see they've brought you some soup. So, I'll help you sit down and feed you, because it's not comfortable with the drip. Okay, I think we got it. That's good. Is there anything you want? I'll run to the store if you need anything. Just say the word. Sally felt so bad. Her eyesight was bad enough as it was. She wore glasses, and the illness had made it worse, so she couldn't see Patrick's face very clearly, and she couldn't resist. Her back hurt like hell, and she was nauseous, and she wanted to sleep. She decided that she was going to die soon anyway, so it didn't matter who took care of her. Surprisingly, Patrick turned out to be an excellent caregiver. He was so diligent, so meticulous and neat, that even the nurses and orderlies marveled. Everyone asked if he was a medical man. The man felt so sorry for this poor woman, she was suffering so much. They talked a little sometimes when she was better, and little by little, bit by bit, Patrick learned everything about Sally and her terrible diagnosis. He marveled at what a bastard her husband was, treating his sick wife with such disregard. Almost never comes, never calls, and she cries and waits like a little child. Sally was incredibly lucky to find a donor, and she began to prepare for surgery, although even the doctors were not sure of success, so severe was her condition. While the operation was going on, Patrick could not find a place to be, walking up and down the corridor and praying as best he could that Sally would survive. He caught himself thinking that he was becoming more and more attached to the customer's wife, looking at her for long periods of time, thinking about her. It felt good to touch her, her skin so soft, velvety. It was such exciting, long-forgotten moments in his soul. It was even unusual. Nurse Kenzie reassured Patrick. Man, the surgery is complicated and will take at least 3 hours, so go to your room and wait there. You must be a relative of Sally's. You're very caring, very concerned. Her husband doesn't pay much attention to her. It's such an exciting day, and he's not there. Patrick sighed. No, I'm not a relative. Her husband hired me to take care of her. He's a businessman, a busy man. I just feel sorry for her. Such a good woman, but she's suffering. Let's hope everything goes well. I really hope so. When Shawn learned that a donor had been found and Sally would be operated on, he cursed to himself. But he still hoped that she would not survive the operation. The doctors said so directly that there was little chance. He decided that he would call the hospital later to see how things were going. He deliberately delayed the time and did not go, did not pay anyone not a penny, did not buy medicines too, although he knew that the policy would not cover all the treatment. Meanwhile, he sent his mother home to the village and, without hiding, brought his mistress to the apartment. They drank champagne and made love frantically. Mary wore Sally's robe and tried on her jewelry. She was already imagining herself to be the mistress of this luxurious apartment. Neither of these two scoundrels thought Sally would survive. Shawn had already prepared a poignant eulogy for the funeral, and his life would begin. The young mistress demanded expensive gifts, and Shawn took a loan, then another one. Work performed after a sleeve, let everything go, only rarely appearing in the office of the company. He wanted to rest to the fullest and not deny himself anything. To the surprise of the doctors, the patient survived the operation and was slowly recovering. Patrick was with her non-stop. He fed her from a spoon, treated the whole body so that there were no bed sores, supported her. All this time, Sally had never had a closer person. She also got used to and became very attached to her savior. She began to ask him cautiously who he was, how he lived. How did her husband find him in the first place? And why the man agreed to do such a difficult and challenging job. Patrick told without lurking about his life. I am not an orphan and not some defective from birth, and that I was at the bottom, I have only myself to blame. So there's no need to pity me. I grew up like all children, in a loving family. We lived poorly. My mother worked as a librarian, my father as an art teacher. We didn't earn much, but we had enough to live on. They laughed at me at school because I didn't have fancy things, always carried an old briefcase, and didn't go on excursions with others because there was always no money. It seemed to me that my parents were losers, that I lived the worst, and in my teens I started to run away from home, scandalized, got involved with bad company, and even got a small sentence for theft. Prison sobered me up. My mother did not survive all this and died of a heart attack, and my father completely withdrew into himself, began to drink, and a year later also died of loneliness and loneliness. After the colony, I took up my mind. I was tormented by conscience that I was to blame for the death of my parents. I had worn out a lot of their nerves. I got a job at a construction site. I got a good salary. Life started to get better, little by little. And then I fell in love with this one girl, Pam. Everyone told me she was a slut, that she was a slut, that she had no place to be branded. But I didn't listen to anyone. She was like a drug to me. Pam was very beautiful. It's impossible to take your eyes off. She twisted me as she wanted, demanded more and more money for fashionable clothes and entertainment. But my salary, of course, was not enough for all this. She left me several times, and when I had money, she came back again. With my mind, I realized that with her family will not build a family, that she does not love me, uses me, but I could not help myself. When she waved her finger at me, that was it. I was ready to jump off the roof or drown myself for her. In the end, it ended very badly. Pam talked me into taking out a huge loan, but with a criminal record, no bank would give it to me. So she took me to an underground loan shark with a criminal record. He gave me the money with no problem, but it was secured against my apartment. So I fell into the trap, and the trap slammed shut. The interest was snowballing and the money was flowing, and Pam squandered it quickly. But we did manage to go to the seaside once, and as soon as I was poor again, she dumped me. As a result, the creditors came to me and threw me out of my own apartment, and before that forced me to sign a contract of sale. So I became homeless. That's when I finally broke down, lost faith in everything, and began to wander. I live in a cottage. We had a vegetable garden there all my life. Of course, no conditions, no amenities, but at least I have a roof over my head. I don't beg. It's too embarrassing. I work where I can. I wash cars, unload goods at the market, clean the streets sometimes. I'm so sick of dog life. Sometimes I don't even want to wake up in the morning. But this is my cross. I myself with my own hands let everything go down the drain. Now I'm paying for my sins. How I got here, it's a separate story. It's not even convenient to tell. Sally listened to him, shook her head, and then said, "Yes, you've had a rough life. You've had your fill of sorrows." And I listened to you and thought, maybe I only imagined that Shawn loved me. If you look at his actions, he's just using me too. I mean, if he really cared about my health, would he have written a will in my name? I was so shocked by that. Apparently, my salvation and recovery is clearly not in his plans. As I understand you, it hurts very much when you sincerely love a man for many years, and he uses you and wipes his feet on you. Well, nothing. If I do not die, I will no longer be that naive fool and bring hubby to the truth. Where is he now? Why isn't he around? I can't reach his cell phone. Oh, Patrick, my stitch hurts so much I can't stand it. Hand me a pain pill from the nightstand. The man was afraid for his ward, gave the pill and began to calm her down as best he could. Sally, you do not worry. You cannot be nervous. Such an operation was difficult. Everything will get better. You're getting better. The doctor says you'll be discharged in 2 days. Think about your health. It's the most important thing now. The woman replied quietly, Thank you, Patrick, for your support, for your care, for your warm words. You helped me so much. You were there for me all the time. I didn't even expect such professionals to work in an ordinary hospital. You know, Louise told me with a challenge that it was a professional honor to help me. And they did save my life. I was desperate. I thought my days were numbered. My only dream is to get back on my feet and adopt a boy, Max. He is very much waiting for me in the orphanage, but I failed him, fell ill at the wrong time. Patrick replied sincerely, You're an amazing woman, Sally. Doctors just pulled out from the other side of the world, and you're worried about someone else's baby. Maybe I was pulled out for that reason, so that I had time to do something good in this life, who knows? Shawn lounged with his mistress in bed, stroking her appetizing roundness as suddenly his phone rang. The other end of the line said, Shawn, it's your wife's physician, Louise. I have great news. Your wife has had a successful operation. The donor organ has taken root, and we are discharging her on Monday. Come back after 10 o'clock so the discharge is ready. Have a good day. Shawn sneered and threw the phone to the floor in frustration. Mary jumped up and asked, What's wrong, honey? You don't have a face on you. Did you finally die? Yes? Did you wait? The man barked, I wish. She's alive. She's being discharged on Monday. What bad luck. I don't understand anything. How is it possible? The doctors didn't give any chances. And the assistant was too diligent. I thought this bum would give up and run away from the hospital. It's too much to deal with someone else's aunt. But this one didn't. He stuck to it. He wouldn't leave Sally's side. People even asked me if he was a relative. I didn't pay him a dime. Why would he do that? I don't understand. Mary blinked a lot. All her plans and dreams at this moment collapsed. What to do now, dear? You promised that your wife would die soon and we would always be together. And now what? Shawn threw her things in her face and shouted angrily, Get dressed and go home. Our dreams are dead. I have to clean up the apartment without Sally noticing. I don't know what to do yet. We'll see. She doesn't realize I've got a lot of credit cards and the company's broke. We need to get everything we can on the card now. I'll try to get rid of her as fast as I can, but you just wait and keep your head down. On the day of discharge, Shawn sat in the car and nervously drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. He was furious and was not eager to see his wife, let alone live with her. He thought that Sally would be out barely in a wheelchair and that she was still not well, but he was badly mistaken. The woman looked pretty good, walking by herself and chatting sweetly with the tramp. Shawn came out to greet her. He smiled and opened his arms. Love, how glad I am that you have overcome your illness. It's such a celebration. Well, are you going home? I've had a hard time in the hospital. Come to me, I'll hug you. How I missed you. The bastard was lying and Sally could feel it. She dodged the embrace and asked her husband in the forehead, I doubt very much that you missed me. You were so busy that you had no time to check on your dying wife? Why haven't you paid Patrick yet? Do you know that he just saved me? He took such good care of me. It's rare to find such a Sally nowadays. Pay him immediately, as promised, with a little extra from me. We'll talk about the rest at home and not here. Shawn got even more angry and thought to himself, Look at you, how the Tsarina has fledged. And she didn't forget about her friend. She's my savior too. Well, I'll give him a good time. He decided to defame the tramp in the person of his wife, and grabbed him by the breasts, began to shake him and shout, How can you not be ashamed? I paid you in advance for everything, at double the rate. And you're not satisfied, you bastard? Sally, just so you know, he did it all for the big money. He's just pretending to be poor in front of you. He's shameless. Patrick blushed, clenched his fists, but said nothing and walked away. He was so hurt, because he had been courting Sally unselfishly and on his own initiative. He could have run away 100 times in all that time. And now he's being treated like dirt. He really cared about Sally. He only realized it now. And now she would think of him as a greedy man. The hospital had even offered him a job as an orderly. Such people were worth their weight in gold. Not everyone is able to take care of the sick so carefully. But he refused for some reason. He was too shy. He was afraid he couldn't cope. And once again he was left with a dreary cottage and endless wandering, and nothing else. Sally couldn't believe that Patrick could lie to her so brazenly. He didn't seem like that kind of man. It seemed to her that not a month, but a lifetime had passed while she was in the hospital. There she missed her husband so much, she cried. She wanted to hug and cuddle him so much. And now she looked at this smug, insolent man, and all she could see inside her was irritation and rejection. She returned home and almost immediately realized that there was a woman there. Long white hair in the bathroom and on the comb, the smell of a woman's perfume on her pillow, and a crumpled robe with dirty underwear she hadn't worn in years. Sally was so disgusted and disgusted, while she was on the verge of life and death. Hubby was here having fun with women, on their own bed. Sally, though weak, immediately started cleaning up, made the bed, did the laundry, and showered. A couple of weeks passed. Shawn was nervous and on edge, and they couldn't even have a conversation. When Sally started to ask about the company, her husband would dodge the question, diverting the conversation to another topic, and it was very disturbing. In the evenings, he would lock himself in the bathroom with his phone and sit there for an hour, texting someone. Sally was also on the verge, tried to start a conversation about adoption, but even then met with a harsh rebuff. Well, you found time, of course. You've just been discharged. You need to get stronger first. You need to rest, not to run through the authorities. And with a child in the house will add more trouble. Let's talk about it later. But the last straw was a woman's gold earring, which had been accidentally found under the nightstand in the hallway. In fact, Mary had planted it there on purpose. She wanted Shawn's wife to figure it out for herself. And so she did. Sally didn't have the energy for hysterics and scandals. She looked at her husband and realized that he was not the man she had loved so sincerely all these years. He was disgusting to her now. She approached him quietly and said firmly, "Shawn, go away, and give the earring to your mistress. She forgot it at our house. We're getting a divorce. I have long suspected that you have someone, but to organize a brothel in my apartment, I will not allow. It is beyond." She thought that Shawn would, as always, twist and lie, but to her amazement he just grinned and shouted, "I'm so glad. I've wanted to leave you for a long time. I'm sick of you. You're always sick and only whining. You've never had children, and I don't need someone else's lame orphanage for nothing, okay? I want my own kids, and my Mary will give them to me. So goodbye. Who needs you, you scary blind chicken, and now you've got someone else's kidney." Shawn began to pack his things into his suitcase, and Sally sat silently, frozen like a stone statue. She was so empty inside, apathetic, not even tears. At last the door slammed, and her husband left for good, throwing his set of keys in the hallway. And Sally lay dressed on the couch and just stared at the ceiling, beginning to realize that her family life had collapsed finally and irrevocably. But she had no idea what other severe trials fate had in store for her. A few days passed, and Sally decided that tears would not help her, and it was time to get her work in order. Surely there must be a lot to do there. And that's when she was dealt another blow. It turned out that her brainchild, a family business on the verge of collapse. Employees have not paid wages for 3 months. They were waiting impatiently for the owner to come out to sort everything out. There were no orders because the husband let everything go to waste and did not pay on time with customers and clients. Everyone turned away from them. Sally tried to flounder, to somehow fix the situation, but the accounts were empty. The scoundrel husband gutted everything and transferred to his accounts. The mistress wanted to take a loan, to give away debts and start from scratch, but it turned out that Shawn has already left a legacy here, took a huge loan against the security of the company, and Sally signed it all in the hospital, because she thought she was dying and trusted her husband, did not read the documents. It was not up to her. She trusted Shawn unconditionally, for which she paid for it cruelly. As a result, the company had to be sold to creditors for pennies, debts she gave away, but was left with nothing, at a broken trough. Sally was literally crushed. She was down. In the morning, did not even want to get out of bed. She just lay in bed in complete darkness and fell into depression.
She kept thinking, "I wish I was dead. I'd be with my mom and dad right now. It must be nice there. What's the point of living if there's no point?" And at night, she dreamed of her mother. She looked at her reproachfully, as in her childhood, shook her head and said, "Why did you, my daughter, lie down and cry? You can't do that. It's too early for you to come to me. It's not your turn. Max is waiting for you. Have you forgotten? You promised him. Get up. You have to get on with your life. I'm here to help you." Sally woke up abruptly, jumped out of bed, turned on the light, looked around, and whispered, "Mommy, Mommy, where are you? I feel so bad without you." But Mommy was nowhere to be found, only a clock ticking on the wall and silence. But Sally realized it was a sign, because she had really given up on the idea of adoption. She was barely surviving, without a job, without a husband who would let her take a child. But her mother's reproach in the dream as if sobered her up. Her head became clear in an instant, and she decided to herself, "Mom is right. The baby believed me, waiting for me, and I'm crying here, lying around. I have to look for a job immediately to start from scratch and get Max back. Maybe that's why God left her in this world, so she could help the baby. I can't let him down." Sally remembered her favorite hobby. She'd always been a good cook, and baking was her specialty. Maybe that would be a good place to start, and then we'll see. The woman took up the task with enthusiasm, fiddled in the kitchen all night, and by morning there were 3 dozen hot pies with cabbage and jam in the basket. Sally paid for a place in the market and went to sell. Surprisingly, the baked goods sold out in a couple of hours, and half of them were taken by the vendors themselves, as everyone wanted to eat. Slowly the business went on, from the morning Sally traded at the market, then cooked borscht and cutlets with garnish, packed in disposable dishes, and went to the truckers' parking lot. They were happy to buy hot lunches, because Sally did not break the price. It was cheaper than in a cafe. 2 weeks later, when she had a small amount of money, Sally bought fruit, chocolates, a police car, and went to the orphanage to visit Max. She was so afraid that he wouldn't come out to her, probably resentful, or that he had already been taken into a family. But the headmistress made her happy. "Well, you've finally come. What took you so long? The poor kid's been saying all day and night that Sally's mom is coming for him. We can't keep him away from the window. He's been looking at his eyes. Are you going to pick up the boy? If you're not, you'd better not mess with his head. There's no need to get his hopes up. He'll never get used to it." Sally wailed, "I will, of course I will. I've just been sick for a long time. I had an operation, and then I divorced my husband. But now things are better, the troubles are over, and I want to apply for adoption." The headmistress frowned. "Divorce, you say? That's not good. Married couples are always preferred. Max is a problem child. He needs care. You can see for yourself. He limps badly. His leg is in trouble. We showed him to the doctors. He needs expensive treatment. Are you sure you can handle it?" Sally pleaded, "I'm sure. Max is in my heart. I really want to give him affection and love. I can do it. This little boy is the meaning of my life. Can I see him, please?" "I brought some presents. I missed him so much." The headmistress's heart trembled. She herself felt sorry for this lame boy. Everyone was hurting him. He was very bad here, and decided to help this woman with adoption. After all, the child would be better off in a family than in an orphanage. She brought Max in. He saw Sally, and he went to her, hugged her, and cried. He held her tightly by the neck and babbled. "You're here, Sally's mom, and I knew it. I told everyone, and they didn't believe me. You're going to take me away from here now, aren't you? And you'll be my favorite mommy?" Sally kissed his snub nose and skinny cheeks, wiped his tearful eyes, and promised, "Of course I'll take him. I missed him too, a lot. Don't think I haven't forgotten about you. I was just sick for a long time. We just have to be patient a little longer, and we'll be together, you and me. Look what car I bought you, like a real policeman." The boy was happy to see you, ate candy, and looked at the gift. No one had ever come to him before, never paid attention to him. That's why he was so attracted to Sally, felt her kind heart. And more than anything in the world, he dreamed of living in a family, like home kids. The woman filed all the necessary documents for adoption and still traded at the market. It wasn't easy for her. After all, she is not yet fully strengthened after such a heavy operation, quickly tired. She now for life had to drink certain drugs, eat properly.
But Sally was not discouraged because she had a goal, to become a mom, and she went to it despite the difficulties. One day she heard a familiar voice from the queue. "What are the cabbage pies? Can I have one?" She answered machine. 25 rubles. Now I'll wrap them for you. They're hot off the presses. They're still hot. She raised her head and gasped. Patrick was standing in front of her. He was stomping on the spot and handing her some change. He obviously recognized her, but he didn't show it. But Sally was so happy. She put 3 pies in the bag and handed them to the man. "Here, take them. Eat them for yourself. Patrick, you recognized me. It's me, Sally. I'm so glad we've met again. I'd like to talk to you. Will you wait for me on the bench? I'll just sell the rest of this and then I'll be free." The man nodded, walked away, and sat down in the shade, greedily eating the hot pies. They were delicious, soft, and melted in his mouth. He watched Sally, smiling at everyone, looking good, recovered, and one would not think how many trials had fallen to her share. The woman got free and sat down next to him. "You know, I divorced Shawn. He cheated on me the whole time I was in the hospital. And he ruined my company. I had to sell everything to pay off my creditors. Now I'm starting my life from scratch, a clean slate. My friends from that job laugh. They say from rich girl to a saleswoman, but I'm not ashamed. I earn my money honestly. I'm getting my papers together. I want to adopt that boy, Max. So I live a little. What about you? Still wandering around?" Patrick lowered his head sadly. "I want you to know that your husband betrayed me. He didn't pay me anything. I took care of you myself, of my own free will. And I'm very happy that you've recovered. And in general, you're a good girl. You haven't broken down. You've started a new business. You'll soon have a baby in the family. And still nobody needs me." Alas. Sally got angry and even stomped her foot. "Can't you stop feeling sorry for yourself? Or is it easier to just go with the flow and cry at your fate? Have you even tried to change anything? You're a normal, kind, and good man. Why don't you start a new life? It's in your hands. I need a second set of hands. I don't have time for anything. I have a lot of orders. And my health hasn't recovered yet. It's very hard. Will you help me? You can live with me. We'll open a bakery at home, so to speak. We'll split the proceeds." Shawn was dumbfounded, but very happy. He was so tired of loneliness. "You think I can do it? I've never even been near an oven before. But I promise I'll try. I wonder what I'll get out of it." Sally winked cheerfully. "The beginning is always the beginning. I was also once scared when I saw my father's company, where I am, and where trucking, but nothing, got used to the time. You'll do fine. Of course, we won't make much money on pies, but we'll have enough to live on, I think. So, companion, off to the supermarket for yeast and cabbage, eh?" So Patrick came to live with Sally, and she put him in her bedroom. At first he couldn't do anything. Everything was falling out of his hands. He was chopping cabbage as if with an axe. He was nervous. The dough didn't rise properly. But Sally did not scold. On the contrary, patiently taught the man the subtleties of cooking. And slowly Patrick's pies began to come out no worse than the hostess. He didn't want to be a freeloader, so he got a job as an orderly at the hospital, so he got some more money. At first, Patrick and Sally were connected only by friendship. The man did not allow himself any liberties. Although he looked at the woman with such adoration, he was not embarrassed by her glasses or her overweight figure. He admired her open smile, kind, a little sad eyes, and such gentle hands. And secretly he dreamed that someday Sally would see in him not just a friend, but a man, and would love him too. The adoption of Max was going slow. The committee was embarrassed by Sally's diagnosis and the fact that she was now alone. What if something happened to her? Who would take care of the baby? She was so tired of proving to those indifferent women from the guardianship and custody that she would be the best mom, and that time was running out, and the baby was still in the orphanage while they were dragging their feet. Then one day Sally couldn't take it anymore, came home and burst into tears in the kitchen. A terrified Patrick began to comfort her. "Sally, honey, what's the matter? I've already made all the preparations for tomorrow. I've got the cabbage stewed and the parboiled. Maybe I've done something to offend you? Are you crying because of me?" The woman wiped away her tears, and sobbing told him everything, adding at the end, "Heartless, soulless people. That's where I'll get a husband for them if they don't have one. Because of this all delay, do not approve of adoption. Every time Max from me on the living tear, he cries so much begging to go home. I can't take it anymore. Patrick gently took her hands and said, "So let's get married. What's the problem? I've loved you for a long time, and I'll love the baby too. You saved me from loneliness and ordeals. I live for you, do you understand? Of course, I'm not a businessman, I'm not rich, and not long ago I was a vagrant. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. But things are different now. I'm working. I have enough to live on. I'll always be there for you." Sally looked at Patrick in a different way and asked again, "Are you serious now? This isn't a joke, is it?" "I agree. As soon as we're married, I think they'll let us take Max away. And I'll be so happy. I feel so good with you too. I think we're going to have a real tight-knit family. And don't worry about being rich. It's not money that makes you happy. I know that for sure now. The main thing in life is to have a faithful and loyal man who will not abandon or betray you. And you are just such a man." The couple soon signed modestly, and finally they adopted Max. Sally's former colleagues mocked her at first. She was a business lady, and now she is a simple shopkeeper, and now she has found a husband to match. He's been unloading cars at the same market recently. Not only that, she adopted a lame boy. She's a little crazy. But the woman had no time to listen to people's gossip. She began a new, quite different, quiet and happy family life. Max took Patrick well. They played with pleasure, read. The man taught the boy to count and write beautifully. After all, he had to go to school this year. And Sally pounded the thresholds of doctors and hospitals, and still managed to get Max to have surgery on the leg. Partly they paid for it themselves, and partly by quota. And 6 months later, the baby walked normally. He was almost limping. Sally stayed with him during the whole period of treatment. She was worried. He was the dearest person for her. She was crazy with happiness when he hugged her at night, kissed her and whispered in her ear, "I love you so much, Mommy." Patrick turned out to be a very thrifty host and a good husband. Every penny he earned he brought home to his family. He could save on himself. But his son was always dressed, clothed, and fed, and he tried to spoil Sally with at least small gifts. He was worried about her health, making sure that she did not forget to drink her medication regularly, did not get cold and cold. It was very dangerous for her now. And every day he thanked God for the fact that on his sinful path appeared such a wonderful woman, who became his destiny, the meaning of life. She hadn't thought about Shawn for a long time. She had only Patrick in her heart. But one day an uninvited guest came to her apartment, who made her remember the terrible past. Sally and Patrick were just practicing with Max, spinning the globe and telling him where the countries were. The kid listened with interest. Suddenly the doorbell rang. Sally went to open it. When she saw her former mother-in-law on the doorstep, she frowned and was very surprised. "I didn't expect to see her. What are you doing here? Have you come to see if I'm dead yet? I can disappoint you, I'm fine. Why are you here?" The old woman staggered up the landing and mumbled, "Sally, hello. Why are you so quick? I didn't wish you anything like that. I have something important to do with you, a huge request. Why don't I come in? It's uncomfortable to talk on the stairwell." The landlady shook her head negatively and asked sharply, "I wasn't expecting you, and I'm not glad to see you. What do you want? Speak here and now." She made up her mind and asked, "Sally, we're in grief. Shawn's in jail. I need money to get him out of there and hire a good lawyer. You know he's going to be lost in there. My heart is breaking. Can you lend me some? I hear you're a trader, you must have some savings. And Shawn, as soon as he gets out, he'll give you everything." Sally was amazed at her ex-mother-in-law's insolence and suggested, "So you should borrow from Mary, his mistress. He stole from my company, took everything out of my accounts, and was going to live with her. Let her help him out. Why did you come to me?" Mother-in-law blushed like a boiled cancer and quietly replied, "Yes, he left him this lout. He took her abroad, an expensive hotel, and then it all happened. Mary began to flirt with someone in the restaurant. My son got jealous and made a drunken man a remark. There was a fight, after which the offender did not get up again. But it wasn't his fault. I'm sure he was just defending himself. Shawn just pushed him and he bumped his head, and Mary just took off and left my little boy. So now I'm all he's got. Why don't you get over it? Don't you have a heart? Shawn's so fragile, he's not going to make it in prison. We have to save him now. Sally replied sharply, I can't help you. I don't owe you anything. I should have been rescued when I had health problems too, but your Shawn was in no hurry to do it. While I was fighting for my life, he cheated on me, ruined my father's company, brought a mistress into the house. So you're on your own and forget about coming here. I have a different life and a different family now. Have a nice day. I'm even glad that everything turned out this way. Otherwise, I would have lived under the same roof with a scoundrel, who herself and warmed up. The woman sharply closed the door, and the mother-in-law staggered into the street, sighing heavily. She cursed the negligent daughter-in-law, considering her soulless, not realizing that she and her son deserved it all. And Shawn languished on the foreign bunks. The days dragged unbearably long for him. The prison porridge was terrible. The cell was damp, and there was a big rat in the corner. The man regretted 1,000,000 times that he had contacted Mary and treated his wife so cruelly and meanly. Only now he realized that his mistress simply used him, squeezing money. And as soon as there was trouble, she'd left him. One thought that in the prison walls will have to spend more than 1 year horrified the man. He scolded himself with the last words, "What did I lack in stupidity?" The house was a full cup. Sally loved her so much. We could have adopted a boy and lived together. I had a job and a good life. Why did I listen to my mother? I fell for a woman's charms and bright wrappings. It's like I fell into a whirlpool. And now what am I? A convict, a criminal, a stigma for life. But Sally continued to have miracles in her life. And what miracles? She was unexpectedly pregnant. She couldn't believe it, and she kept fiddling with the 2-stripe test. She took it 3 times thinking it was a mistake. Patrick even got scared and started to cry. God, honey, what should I do now? You cannot, probably. You're always taking special drugs. You can't go anywhere without them. What if the donor kidney can't take the strain? You need to see a doctor right away. I'm so afraid for you. The woman only laughed. Stupid. I'm so happy. I already did not believe and did not wait. So many years and no pregnancy. Where only did not go for help, and in monasteries, and to witch doctors went. And then I gave up and decided to adopt a child. And now, what a joy. Mind you, I'll never agree to terminate the pregnancy, no matter how much the doctors insist. I believe that a baby is a gift from God, which means I can handle it. You don't look happy about it, do you? Patrick put his arm around Sally and whispered, "What are you talking about, sweetheart? I've wanted children all my life too, and I really want a baby. But I can't lose you. I've been looking for you for so long." The couple made an appointment with the doctor, and the doctor was in over his head. They had a consensus. It was a rare case. After the transplant, it was unclear whether the body could handle a pregnancy. Sally was put on the examination, almost the entire pregnancy. She was on the reservation, under the watchful eye. Patrick all this time was spinning like a squirrel in a wheel, torn between trade, work, and son. They often visited Sally. Max drew her beautiful drawings, and was very much looking forward to a brother or sister. She again had a hard time, barely delivered. The baby was born a month ahead of schedule, very tiny, only 2 pounds weighed. But everything was fine. The baby slowly gained weight. Sally also recovered. And there was one more member of the family. Now everyone was taking care of little Seryoja. Patrick no longer allowed her to freeze in the street, to trade. He had time to do everything himself, and also with the kids in the evenings. Max also did not sit idle, tried to help his mother, did not spoil, protected her. They did not live richly. Sometimes they had to save money, and there were no delicacies on the table. But Sally would never trade this present family for the one she had before. She kissed her sweet little cheeks at night, lay under the side of her beloved, and it was so good, so peaceful. Patrick worshipped his Sally and blew dust off her, because she gave him a family, a son, coziness, affection. For him she was the most beautiful and the most desirable, because she was his favorite.